Hello everyone, this is Marcel. Welcome to my channel. So for today, I'm going to be discussing how MGTOW actually helps women, both directly and indirectly. I bet nobody around here expected to hear that claim, but if you hang on over the next 10 minutes, I'm going to logically prove, at least from my perspective, that MGTOW is a good idea and even benefits the female gender. So what brought this up for me, I was driving the other day with a colleague that happened to be female. To give a little context, I'm basically her supervisor. It was my job to mentor her. Well, after a couple of hours of us working together, out of the blue, she pops this question and says, "Hey, Marcel, can I ask you something personal?" And I'm thinking, oh shit. See, she was an older lady, but I still had no idea what to expect. Well, out of the blue, she looks at me and says, "I can't decide whether or not I should break up with my boyfriend." Now, the short version of what was essentially a 2-hour conversation started out with her telling me that her boyfriend saw her looking at another guy and got jealous, so she has feelings that the relationship is not a good idea, and ended with her realizing that all of the decisions she had been making within the relationship were emotionally charged, did not have logic behind them, and these are her words, like what she realized about herself too, and was more to do with her wanting him to give her a physical commitment, i.e., basically moving in with her or marrying her, one or the other, and that was what was actually bothering her. The other situation was completely or mostly irrelevant and nothing more than her own mental excuses for wanting to be mad at him. There was enough interesting mental gymnastics going on in that woman's head that it would be worthy of a video of its own, so I won't get too deep into it now. Not to mention how it plays into how she was expressing her love differently than he was and expecting different forms of proof of his love from him. The point is that if it weren't for my knowledge behind what I was saying, my experiences, and the way that I view her thought processes, I wouldn't have been able to help her. Though not only was I able to help her, I was able to do it in such a way that she felt like she had helped herself, and I didn't even offend her in the process. Now, I don't feel like what I did had anything to do with maybe hurting the guy that she was with or something like that. She was on the brink of breaking up with the man over her own emotional confusion. All I did was clarify it for her. In the end, I don't know what's going to happen with him, but he's going to have a much more pleasant girlfriend when she gets home to him. With any luck, if she listened to me, she'll be willing to open up to him about what she actually wants. That way he can make an informed decision. So why does any of this matter? Well, consider for a moment how things would change if all men had MGTOW knowledge, be they blue pill or red pill alike, regardless of their end goals. If they simply had the knowledge, can you imagine how many fights and arguments would be avoided completely? How many toxic relationships that would have never survived in the first place would simply never happen? TFM has made several videos on arguing with women or winning arguments, and as I recall, he points out that half the time they're not even thinking about what they're arguing about. That basic understanding prevents a number of problems in of itself. Now, granted, of course, ingrained within the concept of MGTOW philosophy, as far as I'm concerned, feel free to disagree, dating isn't condoned. Being in serious relationships, at least, is not condoned in the first place, so it wouldn't come up. Nonetheless, even a blue pill man to the core would benefit from understanding what's really happening. So there you go, up front, the knowledge itself prevents problems from happening when they don't need to, and can potentially make blue pill relationships all the better, because the guy choosing to stay in the relationship will have the tools he needs to function better within it. So let's say some of the arguments against MGTOW is that, for example, it's hurting the population. I gotta kind of roll my eyes at that one. Guys going their own way has little to nothing to do with women not making babies. Feminism and female education has everything to do with women not making babies. There are plenty of sperm banks and tons of guys willing to get them pregnant every day. All that our philosophy is doing at the most is depriving them of easy resources, in the form of failed marriages on the way to the guy that they eventually plan to settle down with. So let's take a moment and consider how, if MGTOW spread thoroughly, would it affect her negatively? Well, if she has 10 relationships, let's keep the numbers small here, on the way to the guy that she's quote-unquote happy with, that she sticks with for the long haul, the preceding 9 being relationships that were at best a bad match and ultimately failed. Well, maybe she might get a few alimony checks out of it, a divorce or two, but are those resources ultimately helping her? Given the opportunity, if she could skip all of the drama and the trouble and go straight to Mr. Right, at least from her perspective, do you think she would? I have a hard time believing that a woman at least would openly accept a financially lucrative divorce over a straight line to Mr. Right. Of course, everyone in our community knows that the Mr. Wrongs are basically just men that aren't either willing to put up with her crap or not capable of sustaining her particular needs, whatever they happen to be. Now, whether or not you consider those Mr. Wrongs as men that simply have self-respect, or men lacking in qualities defining a good boyfriend, is a matter of perspective. Nonetheless, if her end goal is actually to have a successful relationship, then those men that were wrong for her being pulled out of her way would be an ultimately good thing. If she's genuinely just looking for an income or a paycheck, then it's not going to matter who she hooks up with. Though it can be said that the guys that would be future MGTOW anyway, perhaps they haven't discovered our philosophy, are not likely to be easy marks anyway. It would be far better to skip ahead to someone more blue-pilled, let's say. Ultimately, if our mindset is going to work for somebody, for a guy, he's going to come to that conclusion regardless. It doesn't matter if he sees the videos or not. Eventually, he's going to be like, this isn't for me. I'm ducking out. All these videos are, in a sense, just a catalyst, a way to get the information a little bit sooner. The realizations that would, say, normally come at the age of 50, coming at the age of 20. But for those who still think that it's better for guys to be on the plantation, not to assume that's many of us here, let's consider what it really does to a society when, 80% of the relationships and marriages now are failing, like the number keeps going up every day? What does it really do when men get destroyed like that? And how does that affect women in the long term? So say you've got a guy, he's hardworking, he's productive, meets a girl, hooks up, gets in a relationship, something goes wrong along the way, happens all the time, right? He gets a breakup, but that breakup isn't just them parting ways. It's particularly toxic, especially if they were married, because of the political and societal influence behind that. If there are any kids involved, well, hell, forget about it. This once productive man is completely destroyed from this experience. He no longer makes any significant money. He can't move on. He can't progress in his career. He's been held back and shackled by all this divorce alimony, or even just the emotional damage of having his reputation ruined because, the girl's got to justify the reason for breaking up with him in the first place. Well, he was a jerk, right? The girl's got to give an excuse, a reason for it. Now, that guy could still be tough as nails and go back up on his feet, but he's still going to be at a lower capacity than he was prior to that experience. But some guys never fully recover, depending on the extent of the damage. Society, our community at large, is down one male. One guy who's going to do the hard work. One guy who's going to earn all the money. He's forever driven down further in the dating pool because he no longer has the resources that he had before, or the motivation to excel like he could have before prior to having that one toxic relationship. Now, it may seem like she needed those resources, that experience at the time, to pay for a lot of the things that she was doing, but most of the things she was doing probably was involved in attracting men in the first place. It's even reasonable to assume if more men were back on the workforce at full capacity, that the economy would be doing well enough that there wouldn't be a necessity to deprive men of so much in the event of a breakup or a divorce. Now, I realize, of course, there are not direct resources taken from a man at the end of a breakup. It's more that the experience of dating in the first place is designed to extract resources from him. In a sense, women are their own worst enemies. You see, toxic relationships create broken men. Broken men create a deficit. A deficit creates a need for women to find more resources, which are typically extracted for men. That creates more toxic and unfruitful relationships in of itself, which perpetuates the cycle. Meanwhile, corporations are just lapping up all the money in the sides. Divorce lawyers and cosmetic companies line their pockets and everybody suffers. The point I'm trying to make is if there are enough broken men out there, it does affect society as a whole. If screwing over one guy was like taking a piss in a swimming pool, a couple people might be able to get away with it. But if enough of them do it, the water can start to get really nasty fast. MGTOW is a remedy for that. It's a fail-safe that if society actually gets broken down to the point of no return, that there's going to be somebody around that's not involved to pull it back out again. Not that any of us are going to be Captain Save-A-Hose, but I can guarantee we're going to be around when the dust settles. Now, I doubt that I've covered all of the benefits of having MGTOW around, even to women, so maybe you can let me know down below the ones that I've missed. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this discussion, like, share, subscribe, and until next time, this has been Marcel.